and listeners. Talk of resources, talk of area covered, talk of everything, talk of great minds, talk of leaders. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about Africa. This is just a 6-letter word, but has got so many things in it. Well, today we want to talk about Africa elaborately. And here with me, I have a political enthusiast who is going to help us understand this 6-letter word. Call me Nyakwar Masheti, and here with me, the political enthusiast is none other than
Kwach himself.
Kwach himself.
Yes.
Yes, Kwach. You know, when you say Kwach, from where I come from, I mean, it is a very serious word.
Very serious word.
A very serious word.
Yes.
And this is why today you are going to help us understand elaborately what Africa is. And when I talk of that, let me begin by asking you, what is the identity of Africa?
You know, the perception that is there is of a black man who doesn't think, who is fully dependent on survival. For them to survive, then they have to depend on other nations or aid from Western powers and other powers. But then the real identity of Africa, of course, we are black, and then we are very knowledgeable people. We are people with morals, because if you want to look at morality, then Africa fully defines what morality is. And Africa, we are full of culture, of course very diverse, that are very unique and very important. We are the best, actually.
That's true.
Yes.
So Africa, that is our identity. Black. A black continent.
Yes.
Well, this Africa, I tend to understand that it is the largest of all the continents. We have several continents, but this is the largest in terms of area covered. And then we have resources in Africa.
Yes.
So my question is, why is it that we do have the resources that I'm talking about? In fact, so many of them, but you still find that Africa is the poorest of all the continents. Yes.
That's a very good question. Actually, very worrying, because it's true that we are the richest continent.
But the poorest.
Yes, but the poorest. I think I can think of the words of the late Kwame Nkrumah, who said that Africa is rich, but it is Africans who are poor.
Oh, yes.
So in other words, it is true that Africa is very rich, but a majority of Africans are poor. So we are rich in so many resources. Actually, we are the richest continent in terms of resources. Just to mention, for example, even if we talk of fish coastline, just go to Namibia. Namibia has the largest fish coastline. In Africa today, let's even talk of DRC alone. Democratic Republic of Congo. They produce 80% of the global coltan. This is the mineral that is used for to manufacture mostly telephones and most of electronics. But then you realize that we are still poor. DRC alone, the arable land in DRC alone, can feed the whole of Africa. And then
that is DRC.
DRC alone can feed the whole of Africa.
Okay.
But then if you now talk of the arable land in the whole of Africa, then that can feed the whole world. Yeah? But we are still the poorest. I've only talked of 2 countries, that is Namibia and DRC. And I have not mentioned everything that they produce in terms of resources and natural. So I think, to me, our main problem, number one, I'll say, is the education system. You know, when we were colonized, when the colonial government left, they left most countries with an education system. And they ensured when they were here, when they stayed in Africa, that Africans had their own courses and their own way of studies. And this could only make Africans slaves. Like, you study for you to be employed. You are not going to school for you to come and then create jobs or be innovative. So we could be trained so that we come back and then work for them.
Yes.
And so when the white men left, or when the colonial government left, they left us with a system that we still use. Most of African countries still use this system to date. So that we are taught mainly theory, not practicals. When you're out of school, you know things theoretically, but then you can't really implement them physically. When it comes to now, let's talk of development or innovation. Again, you realize that other people are also just born naturally bright.
Yes.
And they as well, through that bad system of education, they still come out innovative. Again, you realize that the African government, most nations, these governments, they don't support such innovative minds. So that if you come up with something, they see it as a competition to what is there as a monopoly. And then this idea is killed at a very young stage.
Because competition is not...
This competition, they look at it and then they see it is not healthy. Yeah. So most of African countries, you realize that the government, they are not supportive to the young minds that are very innovative. And the same way I've said, I've talked of the education system. We are taught of theory, so that when we get out of school, many people think of employment. So that if there's no employment, then to them it's end, like it's the end of the world. So you realize it becomes so difficult for people to come up with different things, be innovative and create those jobs. Of course, there are other factors we have to consider. These resources, we have them, but then it's so unfortunate that all these resources, let's talk of what we've already talked of, like coltan that is found within DRC. You find that it is mined and then carried outside African continent. It goes to China or another continent, then they use this to manufacture phones and computers and other electronics, and then they bring it back now as a finished product. They sell it to us at a very high price. I want to believe if we can do it ourselves, so that we use the innovative minds we have. Of course, people go to school, so if we use the innovative minds we have, we use the skills we have around, we have the government support such initiatives, then we have these productions happen within Africa. I'm quite sure we'll be very rich, because we'll be managing our resources very well, and then from the resources we manage, we get to manufacture these products that are brought to us as finished products, and from there, it will be cheaper, because of course there is no shipping cost. So I want to believe it will be easier for us to develop. Again, we are also another problem, like the masses, because today, for example, we are in Kenya, right? If you go to as we were discussing before we could even have this show, if let's say you have a kid, or even you as an individual, you've just gone out there, you want to buy mathematical sets, the set used for mathematics. When you go to the market and then you find two sets, one has been written made in Kenya, and the other one made in China. Automatically, we tend to go pick made in China. Because I don't know if we believe that the one made in Kenya is fake, or we just want to use something that has been shipped. So I think the moment we'll start appreciating and believing in what we do, what we produce, then I want to believe we'll be better placed.
So, I understand your explanation of this. So, according to your explanation, it means that the kind of education system that we have is what forestalls the economy of Africa.
I think this education also, I want to believe it also extends to now the kind of leadership that we get at the end of the day. Because you go through
education system is just one of the...
Yes, just one of them. So you realize that at the end of the day, the kind of leadership we have at the end of the day becomes a very big problem. Because we get to we get leaders who fully depend on other nations for survival. That is why I'm saying you realize that governments kill innovative minds very early. Such ideas are killed very early, and then they tend to still go out to borrow money, borrow loans, like for foreign aids and many other things. Of course, it is so easy. I'll talk of even if we don't talk of going for foreign aids. I may just ask you. You are a good friend of mine, and we've worked with you quite a long time. You'll realize that if we go today, if we just leave this place and go out here and find a road that is being built, you'll realize that either there's a white man as the contractor, or actually there's no either or. It is a white man who is the contractor.
Exactly.
So Africans who are there, even Kenyans who are Africans, are just, I can say, Swahili calls them mtu wa mkono. Mtu wa mkono.
Yes.
They are just there trying, I can't even say subcontractor. They are there to offer skills and labor. But then the contractor here is the white man. So if then we can't deliver, then why take an African to then now execute or implement the idea that the white man as the contractor has? That means we have the skills. People go to school. But why is it that a government will go out, borrow loan to come build road, then still go to that same country or another country to hire again a contractor who comes, and then they use this same money to pay them. And then we remain as a country paying loans. But these are things we can do with the skills we have.
Because still it worries me. Why is it that even in our tertiary colleges, in our universities, you will still find that these courses, there are so many courses that are being offered in these universities, including the building and construction, civil works. But when it comes to serious works of building the economy of, when it comes to implementing whatever you learned in school, you realize that they don't trust you. So does it mean that they don't trust what they teach in schools?
It is so worrying. And by the way, do you know, you find a school just next to a road that is being built, or next to a railway line that is being built. A student who is supposed to, in the coming years, be an engineer who builds such roads, is put in class with theory. Instead of just being taken across the fence to see physically, practically, what is going on, or what is being done. I think we are just jokers, and most of these governments are not serious with what they are doing. Because if then you want to tell us you believe in the system or the education you are offering, then why then do you not believe in the skills that come out as a result of the education you give?
And why do you offer the courses?
And then why do you offer such courses? Because then where do you want these people to go? Do you want them after school, somebody who has done civil engineering, to go back and be a farmer? Then what of that person who did farming? Again, in Africa, we've just said that DRC alone, the arable land in DRC alone, could feed the whole of Africa. But then this is a continent with so much resources, a good space that is fertile for agriculture. We have a big population. That means we have labor that we can use in these farms. We have good weather. You can't compare our weather with any other continent. We have good weather that supports agriculture. But then in our schools, we have English as a compulsory subject for the countries that were colonized by the British. And we have French as a compulsory subject for these countries, some of these countries that were colonized by France. So like we have the colonial language as a compulsory subject in these schools, but then we have agriculture as an elective subject, optional. You do it when you want. So that means, like in Kenya today, we are a country that speaks very good English, but we can't produce good, like we are not very productive in our farms.
Even the English, it is not going to help you.
And it is not,
practically speaking, it is not going to help. It is not going to put, in most cases, it is not going to put food on the table. But this agriculture, that is being optional, it is the one that is going to put food on the table. Very true. Well, now, this one brings me to another question. Talking of the French and these other colonial languages being taught in schools and being compulsory. Why is it that when you go to the West, when you go to any other continent, you will find them, somehow they embrace just one language. That is maybe talk of the European continent. They tend to embrace just one language. China, for example, they also embrace their language. They do understand whether you go to the north, to the west, they just embrace one language, right?
Yes.
Why is it that in Africa, it is just one continent, but we have so many languages? When you go to the west, they speak theirs. When you go to the east, I mean...
It's weird because... you know, today, if Nyakwar Mashete here speaks very fluent English, we tend to respect him so much.
Oh, right. Yeah.
If maybe our technical guy here, or the technical team, that is John Kamba, or talk of Dotrin or Doti, or talk of Nyarubura, or even Babi, if they speak French fluently, then we tend to praise them so much, like we see as if they've made it. But in real sense, if you come to Africa, we have our languages. There are so many. So many. Of course, I'm from the Luo tribe.
Yes.
We have the Luo language.
Yes.
There are lawyers who have their Luo language. They are Kikuyus. And every other country, they have their unique. Go to Uganda, there's Uganda. But then, we tend to still speak in the languages. We even put them as the national language of our country. The languages left to us by the colonial powers. I think we need to, as Africans, embrace one of our languages as a unifying factor, so that we tend to also do away with the barriers. Because we have a language barrier as a very big problem in our markets. Because from here, go to Burkina Faso, you want to go sell your item there. It will be chaos because they won't even understand what you are saying.
Yeah, that's true. They speak French. And you speak English.
You speak English. For example, we are going to have the African Summit come to Kenya. You realize that they'll have to put on gadgets that help them in translation. Because some of us speak English, some French, some German. Like, we speak so many different languages that we can't even understand. So I think it is high time we either pick one language, say Swahili, for example, and let it be compulsory, as we tend to put these colonial languages as compulsory subjects in schools.
So they also learn our language, even if it is Kiswahili. They also learn that Swahili in their countries.
So if they want to, let them learn. But then for us, as Africa, let us put it as a compulsory subject.
But I can see them learn it. They like Africa so much. Reason well known to them.
So you realize if we put this as a compulsory subject, let everybody learn Swahili. For example, I don't mean we have to go with Swahili, but then I've just proposed maybe as an example. We pick one language, we put it as one common language. We allow all the African countries learn it, and then we use it as our language. So, today we can't even talk of our own problems as Africa without such problems going out to the West, because they'll automatically understand what we are saying, because we'll be using their language to address our problems. If we have our language addressing our problem, we won't even have the Western media come here to look at what we are doing, because they won't understand it after all. They won't even be interested in what we are doing. So I think if we have one common language, we'll use it in the market, and we'll also use it to help us solve our problems.
Thank you. Well, you've perpetually talked about colonial powers. Talking of colonial powers, it brings me to another question. Scramble for Africa.
Yes.
Africa was back then. I don't know how to put this, but there was scramble for Africa. Why were they, or who are these people who were scrambling for Africa, and why? were they scrambling for Africa?
Okay.
Yes.
I think it's good to call a spade a spade. And when you talk of scramble for Africa and colonization, I feel very bad. Because what happened those days, in as much as we were not there, if you look at even the clips today, like it is something very bad, very painful. You know, those days there was kind of, I can call it rapid industrialization. And so there was need for labor. There was need for raw materials because their industries had just started peaking. And so they wanted raw materials. And of course, I've told you, and we all know that Africa is richest in terms of raw materials and such resources. So, among other reasons. So, Africa was a safe landing point. But then, every country was also trying to widen their territory so that they have a bigger territory than what they had then. So Africa was kind of a very cool landing point. So because they also started fighting and they could not agree on who takes what, they had to meet.
These are the colonial
powers now.
Yes.
Of course, we have almost all of them, all of these Western countries, and so. You know, they had also, of course, colonized United States of America. So Africa was the next option. And so they had to meet in Berlin, what is known as the Berlin Conference. And then they now decided and drew the map that we today use as Africa.
Who are these who met in Berlin?
All these colonial, all these countries that wanted a portion in Africa.
Who believed they could colonize.
Yes, who believed they could colonize Africa. And remember, Africans initially, there were merchants who came. There were explorers who came. But then the Africans, the black man was very hostile. So they decided then to come back and now take it by force. So they had to agree and know that who takes what, who takes which part. And for us to not fight, let us draw a map. And that is how now they came up with a map today we see or we call as Africa. Because Africa, initially we were united. Of course, some of us didn't even know of existence of other communities. So you see, actually, this map.
Yes.
This is something very good, yeah? Very good. But then if you come now inside this map, there are several borders that are drawn. So that Kenya is Kenya. Uganda is Uganda. Rwanda is Rwanda.
The
partitioning now.
Yes.
So they partitioned it into specific points and of course gave it names. So that you know when you land to Africa.
So you mean there was no Kenya before?
No, we had our own name. Of course, even we were not even being called Africa. That is a story we'll give them another day because we are not ending it today.
Yes.
And then they tend to believe that now that they come to Africa after they've partitioned it and they're now coming to take it by force, they believe that they are the first people to see some of the things we've been living with. Take example of Lake Victoria, which is the second largest freshwater lake in the world. You want to tell me those who live along Lake Victoria and around Lake Victoria had not seen it and did not know this is a lake or this is a water body, even if we didn't know it was a lake?
Because someone came and...
they came here and then they now gave it their name, that it's Lake Victoria. But in real sense, like the Luos of Kenya, they called it Namlolwe. The Rwanda, the guys called it Nyanza. Of course, every community that lived around this resource or the water body had a name for it. And then they come here and, of course, write books and say the first person to see or you know discover. It is so painful. And then after that they come in form of missionaries. They spread the gospel of Christianity. They make our people believe in Christianity, and then they find now a soft landing to Africa, and then they colonize us, making us forget about our traditions, our beliefs, and our culture. Today, it is so weird, by the way. Do you know Africans were polygamous?
Yeah, sure. That's true.
And then, I tend to ask myself this question. Not that I support polygamy, not that I'm against polygamy. But what I'm asking myself is, how did these people manage to convince us that polygamy is bad, but LGBTQ, homosexuality, lesbianism, and all those nonsense is right? Like, they made us forget about our culture. And today, if you look at Africa, it is a totally different Africa from the Africa that was there then, before the coming of the white man. Because we are an upright continent, we are people with morality, as we started by saying so. And today, it's weird, my friend.
And then, still again, this talking of the partitioning, the scrambling of Africa, why is it that this partitioning and the scrambling for Africa subjected Africans into much pain? And I mean, you can mention anything: agony, the sodomy, the rape cases were so many those days. Why is it that these people who are scrambling and trying to partition Africa, why is it that they had to subject the Africans to such heinous acts?
A very good question. You see, they came as friends. I've told you they came with the Christianity and a very promising religion, and then Africans tended to believe them. They came in as friends, and then they changed. I've told you their main aim, they also wanted laborers. So that is how they started now slavery. You are being taken out of your land. You are taken to a new land as a slave. You are overworked. You are raped. In fact, it's like these people saw us as animals. I think
because of the dark skin.
Yeah, I think to them we were not human beings. And it is so painful that even children were being taken away from their mothers. They are raped in front of their mothers. Very young children, they are being defiled.
But then they see us as animals and still rape the animals.
It's weird, you know. At times you tend to ask yourself, how are these people? How are they reasoning?
Yes.
Because imagine a young kid, very young, is taken away from their mother, and then they are raped, they are defiled. You know, there are some things we can't show out there because people can't even try. Yeah. But then they are defiled, and our women, they are just being touched, and they've been stripped off naked. Like, it was very bad.
Very traumatizing.
These guys, and then they tend to believe that you are supposed to work for them and ensure that their things are all right. But then anytime they feel like they want to satisfy their feeling of sex, they just come and pick any woman or any kid. They rape or defile, and they just think that is humanity.
Do you believe we are completely out of the slavery as Africa right now, at the moment?
Okay.
Are we free?
I'll call it both slavery and colonialism, or the colonial government, or what we can call it. All of it is still here with us.
Or let me rephrase this question. Well, do you believe that Africa can just stand on its own without depending on any other continent?
Yes, why not? Why not?
It's possible.
It is very possible. The only problem is, I've told you that the kind of leaders we have. Because even if you pose yourself today as a solution to Africa, and then you are telling us to maybe forget about the colonial, the countries that colonized us, but still you move from this country again to another white country for support, then it means still you still believe we cannot survive without any aid. You know, I can tell you as a matter of fact that we are still colonized. That is one, and we are still slaves. Because today, if Nyakwarmasheti is known for something very skillful, you realize that he will be taken away from us Africans and taken to the Western countries, and he will seriously innovate.
Exactly.
And ensure that that country has something big that we could have as Africans. Of course, even us as Africans, our mindsets are still that we need to travel and go there, work there. You see, you just want to get out of Kenya today and go to somewhere in Europe, get a job and work there. You realize that if a president is sick, for example, because he just knows the standard of the health facilities in his country or her country are not the standards that can, like, they are kind of not, they don't believe these standards. They fly out to go for such medication, and they expect that those same health facilities should help the citizens. So I think we are hypocrites. We have hypocrites as our leaders. The best thing we can do today is to think of what our forefathers, those who fought for independence, had in mind. And even some other leaders also came later, people like Thomas Sankara, who had Africa at heart. And I want to believe that the moment Africans and the leadership or the politicians will think of Africa as home and want to make Africa great, then stop depending on the on other countries. Because imagine, with all the resources we have, with all the skills we have, with the population we have, that is already a good market for us, we are still poor and we still depend on the aid of other people. When I tell you we are still colonized, maybe you might think I'm joking, but today Africa, we can't survive. The belief that is there, we can't survive without the foreign aid. And that is why you still find the colonial powers, they are still in our countries under the umbrella of NGOs, the non-government organizations. And without them, we can't survive, because you realize that some of them perform very well than even the government institutions within these countries. So the moment the governments will be serious and take life of the citizens so serious, change the mode or the system of education, trust in the skills they give their citizens, and then ensure they empower the institutions, so that we forget about tribalism, we forget about friendship, we forget about corruptions, and work towards building a bigger and better Africa. We go so far. Yeah.
Okay. So it means we are still enslaved.
We are still enslaved. Yes.
Yes. So and the only way out is the government to wake up, or actually, the governments in Africa.
There are so many ways, because you see, these good people, the good friends of ours, before they get power, they tend to be very good people. Of course, they promise heaven, but when they just get the power, I don't know what gets into the people's minds. They turn into very weird people. You even ask yourself, is this the same person who I voted for?
Yes.
Because you can't believe. Yeah. So I think it is the work of all of us as Africans, both the leaders, be it political, be it economical, even the social, even the administrative, those we have in the villages, and all of us, even the masses, the public. Because let me give you an example. We've just said that you'll buy made in China and you'll live made in Kenya. I think if the public can start supporting the country or the African stuff, and then the masses also believe in the leadership, because if the leadership is good, I want to believe we'll believe in it. Yeah. And then if the public are there and we stand firm, and we decide that we won't support nepotism, we won't support tribalism, and we won't support any form of corruption. Because remember, the government is there, instilled by the people.
Yeah.
So if this government is not performing or giving you what you want, the people have the powers. To look at France the other day, when they even went to the residential place of the president. It's something very possible that Africans can even throng the state house or these residential places if the government is not performing. So if the citizens themselves can even also stop corruption, because today you have a kid, the kid starts crying, and then you're like, please don't cry, when I come back I'll bring you sweet. So
Yes.
this person grows knowing then if I want something I cry.
Yes.
If I tend to cry a bit for me to keep quiet
I'll
or
have to get
be silent, I'll have to get a patco or some kind of things. So I think it is a way of how we also raise our kids that also brings this problem.
Okay.
So the best way is that all of us, and the most important thing I'll want to tell you is that today we keep shouting, and it has been there since I can say over 2 decades. Africans saying, oh, Africa must wake up, Africa must rise. We say, but then we don't implement. But again, you can't implement anything or something if you have no foundation.
Yeah, sure.
So for us to be where we want to be, we have to first of all lay a strong foundation.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And today, viewers and listeners, we have had a great political enthusiast, as he calls himself, Kwach. He has helped us to demystify the problems and the predicaments we do have in Africa. I believe that Africa can go far. It can go miles. As we commenced the show, we did say that Africa is a great continent. And I will still repeat, I will not get tired of repeating this. Africa is great, and we can make it greater. That is where we are going to leave the show today. But remember to subscribe. We do have our social media handles. We are on all platforms as Desert Mamba Productions. Thank you.